Hello everybody, welcome back to another video on the channel. Today we're going to be talking about the NFL MVP award. We're going to be talking about the 5 finalists. The finalists are Matthew Stafford, Drake May, Christian McCaffery, Trevor Lawrence, Josh Allen. Those are the 5 finalists. We're going to be talking about all 5 of them today. We're going to be going in great detail. We're going to be talking about all the stats. And then after we've talked about them all, at the end of the video, I'm going to discuss who I think the most deserving player is for the 2025 NFL MVP award. Who's the true NFL MVP? That's what this video is about. I did a video just like this last year, and at the end of that video, I picked Saquon Barkley to be the NFL's most valuable player. And obviously, I knew he wasn't going to win because he's a running back. But that being said, I thought he was the most valuable player in the NFL last year. Josh Allen was actually the NFL MVP last year, and he was probably my third pick. I thought Lamar Jackson was better than him too. But despite the fact that Lamar Jackson was the first-team All-Pro quarterback last year, it still gave the award to Josh Allen, which doesn't make any sense. Regardless, though, Josh Allen was still good last year. I'm not hating on him. I'm happy he won MVP, but I think it was voter fatigue. I still do. I think Lamar Jackson should have won it over him, and I think Saquon should have won it over him. So yeah. But anyway, same thing this year, same whole situation. We're just gonna be talking about all 5 of the finalists, and we're just gonna get things started with Drake May. I already have the highlights pulled up on YouTube, just because I feel like it's fun to have those running in the background. Can't have audio, of course, because the NFL will copyright strike me. But that being said, we're just going to get things started with Drake May. And at the end of the video, I'm going to rank all the finalists. So yeah, let's get straight into it. So the first person we're going to talk about is Drake May, like I said. And Drake May's numbers, just off of first impressions, do not look like MVP caliber numbers for a quarterback in today's NFL. So let's just dive right into them. We'll just start off with the good, and then we'll get to what I think is the bad for Drake May's MVP case. He completed 72% of his passes, which is incredible. That's a league-leading stat, which is why I wrote it in red. For the rest of this video, all stats written in red are league-leading statistics. He had 113.5 pass rating, which is also very impressive. So those numbers right there just show how efficient Drake May was this year. So, very efficient. I also love his spiral. That's another thing I just have to compliment Drake May about. I love the way he throws the ball. His spiral, it's so clean. I don't know if anyone else has noticed this, but Drake May just plays such a smooth game of football. But that being said, that doesn't really help his MVP case, in my opinion. And when you look at his numbers, he had a good season. 4,300 yards, or 4,300 passing yards, 31 touchdown passes, 4 rushing touchdowns to only 8 picks. That's just, overall, that's pretty good stats, you know what I mean? But it just doesn't look like an MVP caliber quarterback stats. I don't know if anyone can really understand what I'm saying, but I just feel like I look at this and it doesn't seem like an MVP caliber quarterback season, which is why I think Matthew Stafford's favored to win the MVP by so much, and why I personally think Matthew Stafford's going to win. I mean, everybody else thinks Matthew Stafford's going to win too. It's really no surprise. I mean, I'll get to that later on in the video, I guess. But yeah, 8 interceptions to 31 touchdown passes is not bad. That's why he has a high passer rating. But where it really gets bad is the 8 fumbles. Having 8 fumbles in the regular season is kind of just pretty darn bad. 8 fumbles is kind of a lot. I don't like that. I feel like if Matthew Stafford had 8 fumbles, I feel like it's more acceptable because he had 46 touchdown passes and 4,700 passing yards. So it's more acceptable to have more turnovers if you have more of the other stuff. But obviously Drake May doesn't. So there's that. But the main reason that I do not think that Drake May deserves the MVP is because of his schedule, okay? And Patriots fans will not be happy about this, but let's just get this out of the way. Their schedule was way too easy. The Patriots had such an easy schedule, and obviously a 14-3 record is really good, okay? I'm not saying the Patriots are really a bad team. They had a great year, 14-3 record, that's really good. But their schedule is just not very good, which of course is due to the fact that they were terrible last year, so they got an easier schedule this time around. The Raiders, they lost to the Raiders. They literally lost to the Raiders. Now, it's week 1, so it's a bit more, understandable. But the Raiders are terrible. The Raiders are one of the worst teams in the NFL this year, and the Patriots lost to them. They also lost to the Steelers, and they lost to the Buffalo Bills. 3 losses. Not bad. But they just had such an easy schedule. If you look at this, I just feel like most, NFL fans can understand that is a very easy schedule. Just read out all the teams that they played. The Raiders, the Dolphins, the Steelers, the Panthers, the Bills, the Saints, the Titans, the Browns, the Falcons, the Bucks, the Jets, the Bengals, the Giants, the Buffalo Bills, the Baltimore Ravens, the New York Jets, the Dolphins. I just feel like that's not a very tough schedule. I don't know where it ranks when it comes to all the other NFL team schedules. But this is a very, very easy schedule. So I just feel like the Drake May's numbers aren't exactly that impressive. And tack on the fact that he had a pretty easy schedule, you would think his numbers would be a lot better even with that. So I just feel like the Drake May is just not an MVP if you ask me. I circled, just get my pen to point at this. I circled these 3 games because I think that those 3 games are like the only really impressive wins that the Patriots had in the regular season. Beating Buffalo was pretty impressive. Beating Tampa Bay was like sort of impressive because, Tampa Bay, I feel like they were kind of frauds. They lost to the Panthers the last week of the season. I just don't really think they were really that good. But still, that's one of the most impressive wins they had. And then, of course, they also beat the Ravens with Lamar Jackson. So I feel like that was sort of impressive. But there's just nothing really impressive here. Like, I just feel like that the Patriots, their schedule wasn't very good, which is, in my opinion, the biggest thing against Drake May's MVP case. And then you get to the playoffs. Now, the playoffs have nothing to do with the voting for MVP. The NFL MVP, for those who don't know, is voted for and already decided before the NFL playoffs have even started, which that's a very important thing to know because otherwise you would think that Drake May being in the Super Bowl would sway people's opinions. It doesn't. It doesn't sway people's opinions at all. However, it does sway my opinion. I do think the playoffs matter to me when it comes to MVP conversation. But that also is not helpful for Drake May. Yes, he's in the Super Bowl, but look at who they played against. They played against the Chargers in the wild card round, and the Chargers had Justin Herbert with a broken wrist. He was playing with like a hurt wrist, and the Chargers, the offense of the Patriots did terrible in this game. And then against Houston, C.J. Stroud played terrible. He had like 5 picks. Patriots hardly even honestly won the game. Against the Denver Broncos, they played against the Broncos with Jarrett Stidham. Okay, and they almost lost to the Broncos when they had Jarrett Stidham starting at quarterback. And Drake May's Patriots only put up 10 points in that game, the AFC Championship. So to me, it just seems like they didn't have tough competition in the playoffs. And if you ask me, the Patriots really were only like the 4th best team in the AFC. I think the Buffalo Bills, I think the Jacksonville Jaguars, and of course, who's the other team was better than them? Yeah, the Denver Broncos when they had Bo Nix healthy. I think those 3 teams were better than the Patriots in the playoffs. So that alone I feel like goes to show that Drake May really wasn't that great because I don't even think their team was that good. But it also doesn't help that his stats in the playoffs are just terrible. Just look at this. His playoff stats as of now, so 3 games so far because the Super Bowl hasn't happened yet. He completed 55.8% of his passes. The biggest, thing for Drake May when it comes to his MVP case is his completion percentage, completing 72% of his passes. Look how big of a drop-off that is in the playoffs. 55.8% of his passes were only completed. 533 passing yards, 4 passing touchdowns, 2 picks, a pass rating of 84, which is just not good in case you're wondering. An 84 pass rating is disgusting, especially in today's caliber of NFL and how the quarterbacks play and at the level they play. An 84 pass rating is not good, especially not for an MVP caliber quarterback. Like, we're talking about this guy for MVP. I'm holding all these guys to a very high standard when it comes to this because it's the MVP. It's the most valuable player in the NFL. And Drake May's numbers and the fact that his numbers aren't really that good and his schedule was really easy. So all that together just makes me think that Drake May is not the MVP for the season. And I hope people understand where I'm coming from. But continuing talking about his playoff stats. 6 fumbles in 3 games. 6 fumbles and 2 interceptions. That is, let's write that down right now. That is 8 turnovers. 8 turnovers in 3 games in the playoffs. 8 turnovers in 3 games from Drake May. That's ridiculous. Like, Drake May did not get his team to the Super Bowl. They got to the Super Bowl because they played terrible teams who had injuries. The Texans were the best team they played because the Broncos had Jarrett Stidham at quarterback. So, like, they couldn't really put up a fight because they had Jarrett Stidham. The Texans, they had a healthy team with a good defense. And I don't know. I just don't think that there was really much competition for the Patriots to get to the Super Bowl. That's just kind of how it was this year. So, yeah, Drake May's stats in the playoffs just are not impressive to me. Also, these numbers are rushing stats. So he had 141 rushing yards and a touchdown in the playoffs. But yeah, 8 turnovers in the playoffs honestly disqualifies him from MVP contention in my book, even though that doesn't matter for the actual MVP award because it's decided before the playoffs start. But yeah, in my opinion, Drake May is not an MVP, and those are his stats. So yeah. So yeah, that was my thoughts on Drake May. But to be honest with you, that shouldn't really surprise many people. It's not because I'm a Colts fan. I'm not just hating on him. Not just hating on the Patriots. I actually really like Drake May. I love watching him play. I love his style. I love how smooth his game is. but I just don't think his numbers are in MVP caliber quarterback's numbers. I don't think they look right. And as I was just saying, the biggest thing against Drake May is 8 turnovers in 3 games in the playoffs. That's just absolutely unacceptable. He played terrible in the playoffs, and playoffs matter to me. Okay, now I'm not putting that obviously has nothing to do with the actual MVP conversation for the actual award, because the playoffs don't have anything to do with it, but they do matter to me. Anyway, we're going to be talking about Trevor Lawrence next. So Trevor Lawrence, I'm not going to spend too much time talking about him, because I honestly don't know why he was nominated. I have his highlights up from when they beat the Steelers, when they beat the Jets, and he had 6 touchdown passes, which is pretty incredible. But that's really the only thing he has going for him for like an MVP case. So he had a 13-4 record. He completed 60% of his passes. He had 4,007 passing yards, 29 passing touchdowns, 12 picks, a passer rating of 91, which having a 91 passer rating in the regular season immediately disqualifies you from MVP contention, in my opinion. He had 5 fumbles, and his rushing stats include 9 rushing touchdowns, 359 rushing yards, so he actually was a pretty good rusher this year. But yeah, 91 passer rating disqualifies Trevor Lawrence. I don't know why he was nominated. I don't think you should nominate guys that have no chance of winning. I know it's like an honor to be nominated for MVP, but just nominate the guys who actually deserve to be talked about in the MVP conversation, because Trevor Lawrence has no business in the MVP conversation. I'm not saying he had a bad year, just like Drake May. He had an amazing year, just not an MVP caliber year, especially not for a quarterback. So yeah, Trevor Lawrence is not the MVP this year, but he had a good year. So yeah, but that's all for Drake May, that's all for Drake May and Trevor Lawrence. Let's move on to the next guy. The next man I want to talk about is, I think I'm going to talk about Josh Allen next. I feel like that's a good one to talk about next. Josh Allen has been the MVP conversation every single year since 2020. This guy has just been amazing with the fact that, one, he never seems to miss games. I don't know how many games he's missed in his career, but it's not many. This guy never misses games, and he's always in the MVP conversation every single year. And we're going to be talking about Josh Allen next. So yeah, it's another year where I'm talking about Josh Allen for MVP. This is every single year, isn't it? Let's just dive right into the numbers. So we're combining his passing and rushing stats because it's just simpler that way. Interestingly enough, despite the fact this was sort of an off year for Josh Allen, he had a career high in completion percentage. He completed 69.3% of his passes. It's a career high for him. Previously, his career high was 69.2%, so it was 0.1% higher than his previous career high for completion percentage in a season. But yeah, so that's impressive for him. He had 4,247 passing yards. That's 4,247 total yards, because I added his rushing yards onto that. 39 total touchdowns. He had 102.2 passer rating. He had 10 picks, which actually isn't that bad. He had 7 fumbles, though, in the regular season, which is not great. So he had 17 turnovers, which is that's more than Drake May, which is not surprising. Josh Allen normally has quite a few turnovers. And then his playoff stats, so I guess we'll save that. So the next thing I want to talk about, this has nothing to do with the MVP case. But I just wanted to point this out because I noticed this. Josh Allen, remarkably, has had 40-plus touchdown passes every single year since 2020, but for the first time since 2020, he had 39 touchdowns and fell short of the 40-touchdown mark. And that's the first time that's happened since 2020, which that's pretty crazy. So this just right here shows how crazy Josh Allen has been. I feel like we just ignore the fact that Josh Allen is seriously one of the best quarterbacks we've ever seen. Look at this. 45 total touchdowns. 46. I forgot to add the receiving touchdowns, so I had to write them after the fact. But 46 touchdowns in 2020, 42 touchdowns in 2021, 42 touchdowns in 2022, 44 touchdowns in 2023, and 41 touchdowns in 2024. And then this year, 39 touchdowns. 1 touchdown short of having it would have been 6 straight years of having 40 or more touchdowns every single year. That's ridiculous. So yeah, Josh Allen couldn't keep that streak alive. But regardless, though, he had a great season. Honestly, the numbers look pretty good. The only reason I wouldn't have Josh for MVP is because his playoff stats aren't really that good, which we're about to get into. Completion percentage, fantastic. 71.6% completion percentage, but that's kind of where things start to fall apart. 655 passing yards, and this is in 2 games, by the way. 6 touchdowns in 2 games. Actually, that's not bad. 99.8 passer rating, that's not bad. 2 picks and 3 fumbles, that's where it's kind of bad. He had 5 turnovers in 2 games, so that's not very good. It's not as bad as 8 turnovers in 3 games, because that's just ridiculous. But still, 5 turnovers in 2 games is not good.
historically, Josh Allen has been incredible in the playoffs. His playoff numbers are like they're unblemished. Like he had no interceptions in the playoffs. I mean, did he even have any turnovers? I can't remember. I don't think he had a single turnover in the playoffs before this year. And now, after this playoff, after the 2025 playoffs, he has now 5 turnovers. I mean, that's ridiculous. That might be wrong. Maybe it was interceptions he didn't have any of previously. But yeah, Josh Allen kind of fell apart. But of course, now, for people who don't know this, it came out recently that he did all this with a broken foot. I think it was against the Cleveland Browns. Maybe I'm wrong. I think it was against the Cleveland Browns. Josh Allen broke his foot and has been playing with a broken foot ever since. Isn't that crazy? Josh Allen has to be one of the toughest people ever. He played the entire playoffs with a broken foot, and he played a few of the last games of the season with a broken foot. Personally, I think that's crazy. And I mean, I guess it gives us a bit of context, I guess, for his bad numbers in those 2 playoff games this year. But yeah, it does suck for Josh Allen. I will say right now that Josh Allen is not my MVP pick. I don't think his numbers are good enough this year. And not only that, the Bills team didn't play good enough this year. 12-5 record is not bad, but just not enough for me. The numbers aren't good enough, and yeah, I mean, 39 touchdowns is ridiculous. But that being said, his playoff numbers aren't great. But he did it with a broken foot. I mean, I'm not gonna lie. Josh Allen has to be one of the most valuable players in the NFL. Like, without Josh Allen, the Buffalo Bills would literally be nothing. That being said, I don't really think Josh Allen's the MVP this year.
Yeah, honestly, I can't even lie. After looking at Josh Allen's stats just now, I mean, I'm kind of just realizing, like, why can't he be the MVP? Like, he's so valuable to the Buffalo Bills. Like, he really is the most valuable player. Maybe that's why he got the award last time. Or maybe that's why they gave him the award last year, is because he really is such a valuable player. But I still think Lamar Jackson or Saquon Barkley should have won it instead last year. But that's a totally different story. Josh Allen is not my MVP this year, probably. I don't know. I guess I'll think about it harder when I rank him later. But yeah, I mean, overall, let me just think. Why can he not win MVP? In my opinion, the biggest reasons he can't win MVP is because the playoff numbers weren't very good. He didn't get his team past the Broncos, which he almost did. Like, he made some few mistakes there. And that, obviously, I keep having to say this. Playoffs have nothing to do with anything. And where we're getting an ad, of course, because the NFL YouTube channel is so ad hungry because they got to have all the money, right? But the main reason Josh Allen shouldn't win MVP, because we saw him make a lot more mistakes this year. And maybe that has to do with all the injuries he dealt with. But I just think that, I don't know, Josh Allen just wasn't the same MVP caliber quarterback. That being said, he's still one of the most valuable players in the NFL. 102.2 pass rating also isn't like crazy high for a quarterback, and for an MVP quarterback. I feel like that's not very good. He also had 17 turnovers in the regular season. 17 regular season turnovers is kind of a lot. I feel like that's kind of high, so that's kind of like a red flag for Josh Allen's MVP case. But yeah, I've talked about him long enough, so let's just talk about someone else. Next up, we're going to talk about the only running back that I'm going to be talking about in this video, and that's Christian McCaffery. So let's talk about the running backs, my favorite part.
I get to talk about my running backs again, and obviously, as I said, it's my favorite part of the video. Christian McCaffery. In my opinion, if Christian McCaffery wouldn't have had such a bad game against the Seahawks, and if he would have actually got the yards he needed to have 1,000 rushing yards and 1,000 receiving yards, then I probably would say Christian McCaffrey is my MVP. And maybe I still will say he's my MVP. I mean, nobody knows. I mean, I'll say what I think at the end. But yeah, Christian McCaffrey just had an incredible season. So we'll just start with the stats. 12-5 record. Christian McCaffrey is so valuable to this 49ers team. Literally every single 49ers star player got injured this year. I mean, we've seen the graphics, if you've been paying attention to the NFL, of the images and the graphic images or whatever, about all the 49ers star players got injured this year. It was everybody. It was like Brock Purdy, Trent Williams, George Kittle, Ricky Pearsall, Juwan Jennings, Nick Bosa, Fred Warner. All of them went down with season-ending injuries. Well, okay, that's not true. Why did I say that? Only a few of them went down with season-ending injuries. But they were all gone for the majority of the year. And Christian McCaffrey literally led this team to victories and got them into the playoffs. Christian McCaffrey is such a valuable player. And, I mean, the stats are just incredible. So, 413 touches, a league-leading stat. He touched the ball 413 times. Just let that set in. 413 times this guy got hold of the football. He was literally crucial to the 49ers this season, and easily the most valuable running back in the NFL this year. and just an absolute playmaker for the San Francisco 49ers. 5.1 yards per touch is also pretty solid. 2,126 yards from scrimmage is just incredible, which of course is equivalent to 125 total yards per game. So this guy had 125 yards per game this year. He had only 2 fumbles as well, so the turnovers are really low. Just a great year for Christian McCaffery. He also was a first-team All-Pro running back, so that's important. In the playoffs, he didn't exactly play great. He didn't turn the ball over, though, no fumbles, but that's expected. Christian McCaffery doesn't really fumble very much. But yeah, he had 188 yards and 2 touchdowns in the playoffs. He also, the most impressive stat is probably that he had 7.9 yards per touch in the playoffs and the 2 games he played in. But yeah, Christian McCaffrey's kryptonite this year is definitely the Seattle Seahawks. He did terrible against the Seahawks in both the games he played against. In all 3 of the games he played against the Seahawks, I think he played terrible like every time. Although that being said, he might have played good because they played the Seahawks in Week 1 and they actually beat the Seahawks. So Christian McCaffrey actually did beat the Seahawks once. I don't remember what his numbers were for that game. I don't think anything crazy happened. I think he just had a decent game. But yeah, the Seahawks, though, after Week 1, were definitely his kryptonite because when they played him the last week of the season, or was that the last week of the season? That might have been the second to last week. I can't remember. But when they played the Seahawks on one of the last weeks of the regular season, Christian McCaffrey did terrible. Actually, wait, no, that was the last week of the season because I remember how many yards he needed to get 1,000 receiving yards. He didn't get it. But yeah, so Christian McCaffrey still had an amazing year. He just fell apart against the Seahawks. If Christian McCaffrey didn't fall apart against the Seahawks, he 100% would be my MVP because of how valuable he was and how good of a season he had. But that being said, he didn't, so it's kind of like it's almost sort of a stretch to make him the MVP. But I'm very happy the NFL at least nominated him. But obviously, he has a 0% chance to win the MVP this year as a running back because his case just isn't as impressive enough. Like for a running back to win the MVP in today's NFL, he would have to have obviously 2,000 rushing yards alone. That's not just scrimmage stats. He has to have a ton of yards and he has to have a ton of touchdowns. That's the only way. Not to mention his team has to obviously be really good. A lot of factors have to play in today for a running back to somehow win MVP. And hopefully that day comes one day, but it probably won't. But yeah, so Christian McCaffrey had such a good year. And I also just want to mention that obviously he's not going to win MVP this year. But he definitely should win Comeback Player of the Year. Because if we remember last year, this guy like tore his ACL. And he was like having these terrible injuries. And he just overcame all of it to have just an incredible season this year. So he definitely, I think, should win Comeback Player of the Year. And I also think Christian McCaffrey should definitely win Offensive Player of the Year. They might give Offensive Player of the Year to Drake May, though, if Matthew Stafford wins MVP. But we'll talk about that later. But he should definitely win both those awards. I think Christian McCaffrey should go home with at least 2 awards. He's not going to win MVP, but he should win those 2. The Offensive Player of the Year should go to Christian McCaffrey. But yeah, when you look at these stats, he had just had a really good season overall. It's not really an MVP caliber season for a running back, but when you look at how valuable he was to his team, just like Josh Allen, he was extremely valuable. Like Christian McCaffrey is easily one of the most valuable players in the NFL. I feel like you cannot deny that when we saw with what Christian McCaffrey did. He literally carried this team when they lost all their star players. And I just think that alone is the main factor that leads to him being so good. And he did it. He overcame the injuries too, which I know that, I mean, it's a storyline, I guess. I don't think it has anything to do with his MVP case, but it definitely has something to do with his Comeback Player of the Year case, which he better win that. Like, he 100% should win Comeback Player of the Year. Which, by the way, as a side note, Phillip Rivers didn't even get nominated for that award, which is fine, I guess, but he also was like a grandpa coming off the couch. Like, that's a Comeback Player of the Year. He also didn't win a game, though, so I guess that's true. But yeah, Christian McCaffrey's Comeback Player of the Year, and hopefully he wins that one. But yeah, that's Christian McCaffrey. So, yeah, that's Christian McCaffrey's stats. And I kind of forgot to mention this when I was talking about him. But Christian McCaffrey's one of my all-time favorite players that I've ever watched. I love watching Christian McCaffrey. And I got to see him in person because I went to the Colts 49ers versus 49ers game on Monday Night Football when we had Phillip Rivers as quarterback, of course. And that was a really sad game because we lost. But I got to see firsthand how valuable Christian McCaffrey is to this 49ers team. Like, Christian McCaffrey is just so valuable, and I got to see it in person. Like, this guy, like, the way they use him, like he is this team. Like, the team runs through Christian McCaffrey, and I just think that's really cool. And so I'm really hoping he can win Comeback Player of the Year and Offensive Player of the Year. Taking those 2 awards home, I think would just be, like, I think, honestly, would probably solidify Christian McCaffrey as, like, I feel like we need almost be talking about, like, Hall of Fame sort of, like, level. Like, honestly, Christian McCaffrey's had a pretty good career at this point in time. But yeah, so yeah, Christian McCaffrey had a great year, and also
I might link his highlight video that the NFL put out in the description of the video, so that way people can watch. They just go in there and click on it and watch this highlight video. Because Christian McCaffery's highlight video is really good. I love watching the really good running back highlight videos, and this one is no different. It's a very good video. So when you have time, watch it. I think it's like 24 minutes long, so it's like not terribly long. It's just a good 24 minutes of good running back highlights. But anyway, so yeah, we have one player left to talk about before I do my rankings at the end, and that is the last player, of course, Matthew Stafford. I saved what people would say the best for last, just because he's the favorite to win NFL MVP, and rightfully so. He's had a pretty good year, so we're going to look at his stats and make the decision ourselves if he is NFL's MVP or not. So, yeah. So here's Matthew Stafford's stats. Let's just dive right into it. Yeah, 12-5 record is probably the weakest thing. Let's just get started with that. 12 games compared to Drake May's 14 games is not great, but also the Rams had a tougher schedule. Like, the Rams had to play the 49ers twice and the Seahawks twice. That alone is ridiculous. So the Rams had a lot tougher of a schedule than the Seahawks did. Or no, the Seahawks had a really tough schedule than the Patriots did. So I just wanted to point that out. So that's the first big thing that Matthew Stafford has over Drake May, is his schedule is a lot tougher. And I guess I probably should have written that out for everybody. But they still had to play the Seahawks twice, and they beat them. The Rams beat the Seahawks once, so that's big. But anyway, so 65% of his passes completed. That's pretty darn good. He led the league in passing yards and led the league in passing touchdowns. 4,700 passing yards, 46 passing touchdowns. So those two numbers alone are going to be the reason this guy's going to win MVP. Also, only 8 interceptions. Only 8 interceptions. The 46 touchdown to 8 interception, the 46 to 8 ratio, like, that's really, really darn good. The thing that drags him down when it comes to this overall stat sheet is if you cover that number up, then this looks really good. But when you take your finger off that, 7 fumbles is just not great. So, that kind of sucks. His passer rating, 109.2, that's also pretty good. It's only, how many numbers off is that from Drake May? Drake May was like 113.5, and Matthew Stafford's 109.2, so I feel like that's like not a huge gap there. So yeah, I feel like Matthew Stafford's, overall, these stats, in my opinion, look better than Drake May. I feel like we can all agree with that. Because Drake May had what? He had 8 picks, right? He had 8 interceptions. Matthew Stafford has 8 interceptions. I need to have these like right next to each other. Hold up, wait a second. Okay, so this is probably what I should have done earlier, which is have the two right next to each other, like the comparison. So as you can see, Drake May had 8 interceptions. Matthew Stafford also had 8 interceptions. The difference here is Matthew Stafford has 46 touchdown passes. Drake May has 35 total touchdowns to 8 picks. Like, the difference is that Matthew Stafford has so much more production with less turnovers, because Drake May had 1 more turnover than Matthew Stafford, because he had 1 more fumble than Matthew. So I just think that, like, that alone just really just shows to me that, like, Matthew Stafford's, just those numbers alone just look so much better than Drake May's, okay? Like, am I right or wrong here? Like, I feel like most people probably agree with me, except for Patriots fans. And, of course, obviously, like, Drake May won 2 more games than Matthew Stafford, but I just feel like that Matthew Stafford's schedule was so much tougher than Drake May's, and he put up better numbers. Like, the fact that Matthew Stafford had a tougher schedule and put up better numbers in a tougher schedule, that alone makes me feel like that Matthew Stafford is above Drake May. And I have nothing but praise for Matthew Stafford this season, to be honest with you. And he was the first-team All-Pro quarterback, which that's a really big deal, and that's really something to pay attention to. Drake May did not get the first-team All-Pro nod. The first-team All-Pro quarterback is almost always going to be the MVP. Unless, I guess, in the past, unless there was a running back that won MVP. But obviously that doesn't really happen anymore. So the first-team All-Pro quarterback is pretty much always the MVP. But last year, Lamar Jackson was the first-team All-Pro, and he did not get the MVP, which that's really, like, that never normally happens. So I just want to clarify that this pretty much guarantees that Matthew Stafford's going to get the MVP. You know what else guarantees the MVP? Is that Matthew Stafford was not nominated for Offensive Player of the Year. You know who was nominated for Offensive Player of the Year? Drake May. That's really big deal. Most people might be thinking, like, what is this kid talking about? Matthew Stafford was not nominated for Offensive Player of the Year because the voters did not vote for him, because they all placed their votes for him for MVP. I mean, that pretty much guarantees him for MVP. But is he MVP in my book? I guess that's what we're also talking about. Like,
I don't know. I mean, let's just talk about the playoffs. I'm really rambling on here. His playoff stats are the biggest thing against his MVP case, but they're still not as bad as Drake May's playoff stats, but they're not great. 55.5% completion percentage is not very good. 936 passing yards is good. I think he had 312 passing yards per game in the playoffs, which is just crazy. 6 touchdown passes in 3 games. He only had 1 interception compared to Drake May's 2 interceptions. He also fumbled the ball 3 times, but he just didn't fumble the ball 6 times like Drake May. And he had a 94.4 passer rating, which is a lot more acceptable than an 84 passer rating like Drake May had. So Matthew Stafford's playoff stats weren't exactly that great, but they weren't near as bad as Drake May's stats. So there's that. So just doing the comparison right here, Matthew Stafford has way better numbers and just a way better accolades this year than Drake May does. So that's really the main point from having them side by side, is just the comparison. But yeah, Matthew Stafford's, honestly, I would be perfectly fine if he won MVP this year. 100% deserving. But let's get right into the rankings, and then I'll share them at the end.
Okay, so I've done my rankings, and I've made my decision of who I think the MVP is for the 2025 season of the NFL. So, first of all, we're going to start off with number 5. My 5th ranked MVP nominee is Trevor Lawrence. That should come as no surprise. What is going to be surprising is my 4th ranked MVP nominee, and that's Drake May. Now, all Patriots fans are going to be upset about this, but I just feel like there's just too many red flags for Drake May. And too weak of a schedule, and the stats just aren't good enough for me. And having a really high completion percentage without everything else isn't enough for me. So he is my 4th ranked MVP nominee. But he's still the 4th most valuable player in the NFL in my opinion. So, and honestly, that's kind of crazy that I'm saying that out loud. But that being said, I still think he's a good player. I ranked him number 4. I just don't think that he's better than the other candidates. Number 3 is Josh Allen. Josh Allen is very valuable. We already know this. He was winning this year with a team that was not very stacked and didn't have that much talent on it. And Josh Allen did a fantastic job. Even though he was kind of not as good this year than in years past, Josh Allen was still pretty darn good. Obviously, he failed to reach the 40 touchdown mark that he's had for 5 years in a row. But Josh Allen still had a good year. He did make a lot of mistakes, but he dealt with a lot of injuries. And Josh Allen put on the Superman cape many times this year. And he had a great season. That being said, he's not better than the other 2 candidates. Which leads me to who I think is the MVP of the NFL for 2025. And it comes down to 2 players, Matthew Stafford and Christian McCaffery. And after going through the numbers, I don't know, it was really hard for me to decide between the 2 because they both did really good. The thing that gives the edge to the player that I picked is the playoffs. So most people probably know who I'm picking. I'm picking Matthew Stafford. Matthew Stafford is, in my opinion, the MVP of the NFL for 2025. And for once, I actually agree. I normally, I never agree. I never ever agree. Who the heck is banging stuff out there? If you can hear this, it sounds like a grenade just went off in my house. Well, multiple grenades. No, it sounds like a machine gun. That's what it sounds like. So, sorry for that, but it's not really that big of a deal. But, Matthew Stafford is 100%, in my opinion, the MVP of the NFL. Christian McCaffery had a great year, but Matthew Stafford is just better, and it's just simple as that. And, as I was saying, I never ever agree with the favorite to win an NFL MVP, and I never ever agree with who they pick to win MVP. But this year, Matthew Stafford will win the MVP. I'm saying it now. I know I said Lamar Jackson would win last year, and that didn't happen. This year, Matthew Stafford will win, and I'm going to agree with it because for once, the quarterback deserves it this year. Matthew Stafford just played better. Despite the fact that the Seahawks were so much better than the Rams, Matthew Stafford almost willed them to victory. Matthew Stafford, and by the way, this guy is just such a talented player that we have had such a joy to watch since he came into the NFL in 2009. The one thing Matthew Stafford doesn't have is an MVP, and I think he's going to get it this year, and he's deserving of it. Great season. The biggest thing for me was that he led the league in passing yards and passing touchdowns. Those are 2 really important things that an MVP quarterback should have. And he had them, and they were pretty high. 46 touchdowns, that's pretty impressive. And then 4,700 passing yards. He was on the number 1 offense in the NFL. Most times, the number 1 offense in the NFL, their quarterback is in the MVP conversation. And in this case, he was. So, I'm going with Matthew Stafford as my MVP. And I think most people probably agree with that. And I'm excited. And just to keep yapping on, I guess. If Matthew Stafford wins the MVP, which I almost certainly think that he will. I know last year I said Lamar Jackson had a 100% chance to win. I feel like I can't say that this year because it didn't happen. So this year I'm saying that Matthew Stafford has a 99.9% chance to win the MVP because of what I was sort of talking about earlier, which is the fact that Matthew Stafford wasn't even nominated for Offensive Player of the Year. The reason he wasn't nominated for Offensive Player of the Year is because he's going to win MVP. I'm telling you, he's going to win MVP. It's just almost a surefire thing. I'm more confident that Matthew Stafford will win MVP this year than I was confident Lamar Jackson won MVP last year. So, Now, Lamar Jackson should have won, but, I've talked about that enough. So, Matthew Stafford's my MVP, and I hope you enjoyed watching this video. I guess I should probably also say who I think should win, just real quick, who I think should win some of the other awards. Offensive Player of the Year award should go to Christian McCaffery. Comeback Player of the Year award should go to Christian McCaffery. Defensive Player of the Year should go to Myles Garrett. If anyone else wins Defensive Player of the Year, it's an absolute highway robbery. Like, obviously, Will Anderson Jr. was great for the Texans. Nick Bonito, is that how you say his name? He had a great year for the Broncos. But Myles Garrett was so good. Now, obviously, the Browns sucked. But I think for Defensive Player of the Year, I don't really think it matters if your team sucks. For MVP, I feel like your team has to be good. It's not the same for Offensive Player of the Year. But for MVP, your team has to have had a good season. But for Defensive Player of the Year, I think we can all agree that your team didn't have to be good. You just had to be really good. Myles Garrett was by far the best defensive player this year. Broke the sack record, obviously. Myles Garrett's the Defensive Player of the Year. And if Myles Garrett doesn't win the Defensive Player of the Year, then that's ridiculous. He is this is one of the most surefire Defensive Player of the Years I've ever seen. I have a feeling that there's a chance they might not give it to him just because the Browns sucked. But I think that they should give it to Myles Garrett. Just fantastic season. He's my Defensive Player of the Year. And Christian McCaffrey, he better win Comeback Player of the Year. What Christian McCaffrey went through with tearing his ACL and all the terrible things that happened to him, he's just such an easy Comeback Player of the Year pick for me. And then Offensive Player of the Year is kind of where it gets kind of close. I could see them giving the Offensive Player of the Year. I could see them giving it to Drake May, because I think Drake May, since they're not giving him the MVP, they might give him Offensive Player of the Year. But I think Christian McCaffrey is the better Offensive Player of the Year than Drake May. I think he makes more sense. They might give it to Jackson Smith-Njigba. I could see them doing that too, but I still think Christian McCaffrey is higher than both those guys, which is why I'm picking him. And then I guess what's the last thing? I guess Defensive Rookie of the Year. I can't pronounce his name, but the Seahawks player who's nominated for that is the guy I'd go with. There's another ad. But yeah, I would go with the Seahawks guy for Defensive Player of the Year, or Defensive Rookie of the Year. And then Offensive Rookie of the Year, I think Travion Henderson's probably the best pick. I saw some people think that, I think Tetra McMillan, I think that's his name, the Panthers wide receiver. I've seen people say he should win. I don't think he should win necessarily. I think Travion Henderson was easily the best offensive rookie. I think most people would agree with that. So yeah, Travion Henderson's my pick for Offensive Rookie of the Year. Coach of the Year, that's kind of a tricky one. Let's see here. I think Coach of the Year should probably be Mike McDonald. I feel like if Mike McDonald doesn't win Coach of the Year, I think that's ridiculous. I could see him giving it to Mike Vrabel, but I think Mike McDonald, because like what he did with the Seahawks this year completely turned the program around. I know that Mike Vrabel did the same, but let's be honest, the Seahawks are probably going to win the Super Bowl. So I think Mike McDonald should win the Coach of the Year award. And then I know that they made an award called Protector of the Year for offensive linemen. I don't even know who the heck I picked to win that. Honestly, who would I even pick to win that award? I think there's a dude on the Broncos who's really good. Maybe you give it to him. I don't know. I didn't really look into that. I probably should have looked into who the good offensive linemen were. But I didn't even see who was nominated for that. Maybe they didn't nominate anybody. They just picked somebody. We'll see if they even do that tonight. Yeah, NFL Honors is tonight. We'll see if I get this video out in time. I'm going to guess probably not, but maybe I do. We'll see. Either way, we'll see if I make a follow-up video discussing the MVP stuff. If Matthew Stafford doesn't make an MVP, or if Matthew Stafford doesn't win MVP, you 100% see a follow-up video within the next few days. Regardless, I might make a follow-up video anyway, just to talk about how the voting went and stuff. Regardless, we'll see who wins, and I think that's enough for this video. This video is probably already long enough. So yeah, with that being said, the last thing I want to talk about. Well, there's two more things, really quick. If Matthew Stafford wins MVP, that would just be the icing on the cake for what I think would solidify him as a Hall of Fame quarterback. Matthew Stafford has already won a Super Bowl. He's already
he's already like what, really high up on the all-time. He's top 10 all-time passing yards. He's high up on the list, and he also has been playing a high caliber of football his entire career. Okay, and he played so good when he was with the Lions. The Lions just sucked, so it was really hard for him to do anything. But he had a lot of good years, mainly 2011, and there was another good year he had at the Lions. But every year he's been with the Rams, he's been great. Yeah, I would say that if Matthew Stafford gets this MVP, I think he's a Hall of Fame quarterback. And I think most people would agree, because he was kind of already a Hall of Fame quarterback, people would say. But now that he's got an MVP, assuming he wins, then he's 100% a Hall of Fame quarterback, in my opinion. Then the very last thing I want to talk about, because I don't want to make a Super Bowl preview video, and this will be the last video I probably make before the Super Bowl, unless I make a video about the MVP results. Here's my Super Bowl picks, okay? This is the easiest decision of my entire life, okay? I think the Seahawks will win by like 20 points, at least by 20. Like, I hope it's a close game just for entertainment purposes, but the Seahawks are just such a better team, it's just not even funny. Like, people who don't pay attention to the NFL just will assume it's Patriots will probably win just because it's the Patriots. Like, let me assure you, this is not the same Patriots team. They don't have Tom Brady, they don't have Bill Belichick, and they don't have that clutch factor. At least I don't think they do. So, yeah, the Seahawks will dominate. Like, the Patriots just put up 10 points against the Broncos defense. They hardly put up any points against the Chargers defense. They're going up against the best defense in the NFL in the Seattle Seahawks. And I think that they'll fall flat on their face. I think the Seahawks are going to dominate, and I think the Seahawks will win their second ever Super Bowl, and I think they'll get revenge for, Super Bowl 49. I think they'll get revenge for that. So, yeah, we'll see what happens. But, yeah, enjoy watching the Super Bowl. Watch NFL Honors tonight if you can. We'll see if I get this video out in time. But, yeah, I think that's it. Thanks for watching. I've yapped long enough. I think I stuttered a lot in this video, so sorry for that. I need to make a lot more NFL videos on the channel. I think that'd be fun. I don't really have time to make them all the time. But, yeah, thanks for watching. I need to stop talking, so bye.